All right, let's dive right into this, shall we?
Yeah.
Tennessee Williams, a giant of American theater, and we're going deep on him today. You've really given us a lot to unpack here. We've got his early work, those iconic plays everyone knows. So we'll be looking at those early struggles, the huge Broadway successes, the recurring themes. It's going to be quite a ride.
You know, what always fascinates me about Tennessee Williams is how much his personal life seeps into his writing. It's all their family drama, that feeling of being an outsider, the crushing weight of expectations. And it's so powerful because you can tell it came from a real place.
Yeah, and right from the start, we're talking about a guy born Thomas Lanier Williams III in 1911. It's not exactly the kind of name that screams Broadway legend, is it?
It's a bit of a mouthful. And his early years, well, they weren't exactly easy.
No, not at all. He was born in Mississippi, but the family moved to St. Louis when he was a kid, and it seems like that move really shook him up.
It did. See, Williams had this really complicated relationship with his father, which you can see echoes of in some of his plays. But it was his mother, Edwina, and his sister, Rose, who he was really close to. And those relationships, especially with those women, they become really crucial for understanding his work.
You can really see that dynamic, that push and pull, especially between mothers and their children, popping up again and again in his plays.
Absolutely. And of course, we can't talk about Tennessee Williams without acknowledging the struggles he faced throughout his life. I mean, mental health, addiction.
Right. Those are big ones.
They really were. And
Yeah.
those struggles, those darker parts of his own experience, they definitely find their way onto the stage. So many of his characters are wrestling with their own demons, and it brings this raw vulnerability to his plays that's just incredibly powerful. It's like he's inviting us to confront these really human, really uncomfortable truths right there alongside them.
It's that willingness to go to those dark places, I think, that makes his work so compelling.
It definitely adds a layer of depth.
And the thing is, even before he was the Tennessee Williams, even before the fame and the awards, he was already grappling with these themes. His very first play, back in 1935, was this one act called Cairo Shanghai Bombay.
Catchy title.
I mean, talk about a mouthful. But even in that early work, you can see him playing with those big ideas. Family, desire, what it means to be an outsider. It's like he was laying the groundwork for everything that would come later.
Exactly. And then, a few years later, he publishes this collection of one-act plays called American Blues. This was 1939. And that's when people really started to sit up and take notice.
It's like he was flexing his writing muscles, finding his voice.
And giving us a taste of what was to come. Because, of course, then comes 1944, and bam, the Glass Menagerie explodes onto Broadway. This memory play, narrated by Tom, looking back on his life with his overbearing mother, Amanda, and his painfully shy sister, Laura. It was his first mega success, critically acclaimed, a hit with audiences.
It really put him on the map.
It did.
So what was it about the Glass Menagerie that made it such a turning point for Tennessee Williams? What made it resonate so deeply?
Well, a lot of people see it as this deeply personal play, almost like he's drawing on those family dynamics we were just talking about. That character, Laura, with her collection of delicate glass animals, she embodies this fragility that just grabs you.
Yeah.
It's so relatable. And, you know, the play is called The Glass Menagerie for a reason. It's about how easily these beautiful, fragile things, these relationships, these dreams can shatter.
And how sometimes, even when we know better, we still reach out, hoping to hold on to them just a little bit longer. And it's that vulnerability, that fragility that really gets under your skin, right? Even when his characters are flawed, even when they make decisions you don't agree with, you still feel for them.
Absolutely. And after the Glass Menagerie, it's like he unlocked something in himself. He just kept digging into those raw, uncomfortable truths that we all experience but don't always want to talk about.
And he wasn't afraid to go there. You've got some of his most famous plays right here in our stack. A Streetcar Named Desire, which won him his first Pulitzer Prize.
Incredible play.
Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, another Pulitzer.
Talk about a legacy.
Right. And then there's Summer and Smoke, The Night of the Iguana.
Yeah.
These plays just stay with you. Each one packs this emotional punch, exploring those big themes of longing, societal pressure, that search for meaning.
It's like he had his finger on the pulse of what it means to be human, to grapple with these big, messy emotions.
Exactly. And let's not forget those settings, that Southern Gothic atmosphere that just seeps into your bones.
Oh, it's inescapable. Take A Streetcar Named Desire, for example. You've got Blanche Dubois, this fading Southern belle, descending into this world of illusion, as she tries to cope with a society that's passed her by and her own personal struggles. It's heartbreaking.
Absolutely. And then you've got Cat on a hot tin roof set down in the Mississippi Delta, and it's like this pressure cooker of family drama.
Oh yeah, secrets, lies, that deep yearning for something more, something true, all playing out against this backdrop of scorching family tensions. Williams knew how to turn up the heat.
He really did. It's like he's holding up a mirror to these families, to the American South itself, and revealing all the cracks beneath the surface. And the way he uses language, it's just...
It's poetry, raw, visceral, poetic.
Exactly. You can practically feel the character's emotions pulsing off the page. It's impossible not to get sucked in.
And he doesn't shy away from those difficult topics either. For the time, he was really pushing boundaries, especially when it came to things like class, gender, sexuality.
It was a different era, that's for sure.
It really was. And remember, this was a time when being openly gay was taboo, even dangerous. Yet his own sexuality is woven into his work, challenging those social norms and giving voice to the marginalized, the misunderstood. It was a bold move.
It took a lot of courage to be so open, so honest in his writing during that time.
It really did. He faced discrimination, social stigma, all because of who he was. And it's impossible to separate those experiences from the empathy and understanding he brings to his characters, many of whom are outsiders themselves, grappling with their identities, trying to find their place in a world that doesn't quite accept them. It's a theme that feels even more relevant today, don't you think?
Absolutely. And it makes you think about his relationship with his sister, Rose, who was such a huge influence on his work.
Rose was incredibly important to Tennessee. You can see her in so many of his female characters, especially those who are delicate, vulnerable. And then there's the tragedy of her later life. She was lobotomized after a misdiagnosis, a real tragedy. It's impossible to imagine what he went through knowing that, and it definitely found its way into his writing in really profound ways.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking. It makes you see those fragile characters in a whole new light.
It really does. And it speaks to Williams's deep compassion for people who are different, for those who don't fit in. That's something you see throughout his work.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Those early struggles, the huge success of the Glass Menagerie, all those amazing, unforgettable plays, and the enduring themes he's known for. But we haven't really touched on his later work. Did he keep writing in that same vein, or did things change?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. It's like he was anticipating his own career trajectory in a way, because in The Bar of a Tokyo Hotel, his last play, written in 1969, it takes a hard look at aging, isolation, that feeling of your creative spark fading.
There's a real sense of melancholy there, isn't there? Almost like he's reflecting on his own life, his own legacy.
A lot of critics believe that's exactly what he's doing. It's a stark play, very introspective, and you see it all there. The fear of fading fame, the struggle to remain relevant, the shadows of those personal demons. It's like he's wrestling with those universal fears, those questions we all face as we get older. Time passing, worrying about being forgotten, wondering if you made the right choices.
It makes him feel more human, more relatable somehow. Like even these larger-than-life figures have those moments of doubt.
Exactly. It reminds us that he was grappling with those same big questions, too. And honestly, I think that's part of what makes his work so timeless and universal.
So we've talked about his challenging early life, his groundbreaking plays, those recurring themes, the legacy he left behind.
Yeah.
How should we remember Tennessee Williams's impact on American theater? He really did change the game, didn't he?
He absolutely did. I mean, he shifted the landscape of American drama. He brought this raw psychological realism to the stage and wasn't afraid to tackle controversial issues head on.
He gave a voice to the voiceless, didn't he? He brought those hidden struggles out into the open.
He did. And it's no wonder his plays still resonate so strongly with audiences today, because those themes, longing, isolation, that search for connection in a world that can feel so fragmented, those are universal. We all experience them.
And his influence goes way beyond the stage. You see it everywhere in modern plays, in movies, in books. That Southern Gothic tradition he helped shape, it's still going strong.
It definitely is. There's something about that blend of beauty, decay, and psychological tension that just draws people in. And you're right, his work has this timeless quality. You could stage one of his plays today and it would still feel relevant.
Exactly, because he tapped into something essential about what it means to be human, the desire, the fear, the love, the loss. Those moments of intense joy and those gut-wrenching lows, those things connect us all.
They do. They're the heart of the human experience.
Well, this has been quite a journey. From those complicated early years to those groundbreaking plays and his enduring legacy, I think it's safe to say that Tennessee Williams was more than just a playwright.
He was a visionary, an artist who really laid himself bare on the stage. And in doing so, he changed the way we look at ourselves, the way we connect with each other. He left a mark, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And for all the analysis, all the awards and acclaim, sometimes I think the best way to truly get Tennessee Williams is to just experience his work firsthand. Go see one of his plays. Let those raw emotions wash over you. Let his words stay with you long after the curtain falls. There's nothing quite like it.
Couldn't agree more. And, something to pay attention to maybe on a second viewing are his stage directions.
Oh, interesting.
They're often overlooked, but they offer this amazing glimpse into his vision, into how he wanted to create the atmosphere, the rhythm, the emotional currents of those plays. It's like getting a peek inside his head.
That is a fantastic point. It's like having him right there in the rehearsal room with you.
Well, what a great note to end on. Thank you so much for this incredible deep dive. You've given us and all our listeners a lot to think about. Tennessee Williams, a true giant in the theater, a master storyteller who wasn't afraid to explore the darkest, most vulnerable corners of the human heart. And his work, it just keeps on sparking conversations, stirring emotions, reminding us of the power of art to illuminate the human experience.